Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a one-shot Shadow Blade build guide in Baldur's Gate 3 using the Paladin and the Sorcerer. Now we're going to upcast the Shadow Blade, which is going to give us insane amounts of damage. I'm going to show you all of that in this video. We're going to start with the Paladin. However, you could go with a Sorcerer and multi-class into the Paladin later, as this will give you Constitution saving throw proficiency. However, starting with the Paladin will give you heavy armor proficiencies, so take which one of these you prefer. Also, the Paladin has an easier start than the Sorcerer. And for the subclass, we're going to go with the Oath of the Vengeance and the Shadow Magic Sorcerer, because we can create darkness we can hide out in, and then the Shadow Blade gets advantage on attacks and any heavily obscured targets. So with this, we also can apply radiant damage on this. For our ability scores, I think it's best to actually go obviously around Charisma, a bit of Constitution. Dexterity seems to be best here because this is a finesse weapon. Although if you wanted to, you could build around Dexterity and then also use a Strength Potion to really maximize the amount of damage that you're going to be getting. So something like this, here with the 16 Dexterity, 14 Constitution, and 16 Charisma works well. You could build around Strength, but again, it is a finesse weapon, so it can use your Dexterity, and that's also nice if you wanted to use a different set of armor for stealth-based purposes. So at level 2, defense for the +1 armor class is really nice. Although if you want to use a shield, this will give you a +2 to your damage, which can also be effective. And great weapon fighting doesn't apply here. As for the spells, I would recommend taking Command, the Smites, and Cure Wounds is not bad either, but the Wrathful Smite will add additional psychic damage to us. And what makes this build so powerful is the fact that we can double our psychic damage, because the Resonant Stone will allow us to do that, and it becomes crazy. We also get the Vow of Enmity here, which we can use our Channel Oath to give ourselves advantage on all attack rolls. However, with Shadow Blade, we pretty much are always going to have advantage on our attack rolls. And we also get ourselves Bane and Hunter's Mark, although we have better concentrations like Darkness to hold up. So the spells after here don't really matter too much. For early game, you could take Bless, because that's not a bad one to have early on in the game. And just continue along there. For the feat that we'll be going with, a Charisma increase is always nice, but you could go with an increase either your Dexterity or your Strength as well. We're not going to have an issue with landing spells, but you could also go with something like the Savage Attacker here, so you can reroll your damage die, so you can get flat out just higher amounts of damage. We could also alternatively build around your Dexterity, but I think working with Charisma works pretty well too. And as always, the Alert feat is also a nice one to have as well, so you go with any one of these. To get the maximum amount of damage, you're going to want to use a Strength Potion. There's nothing else in the game that can match that. But once we make it to level 5, we get ourselves Hold Person and Misty Step, which are two extremely useful spells. We get extra attacks, so we can do 2 smites per turn. And then we also get like Branding Smite there, which uses your bonus action. Not something you really often want to use. You get Aid and Lesser Restoration as well. Your choice for what spells you're going to take. Nothing's dire except for Command and using the Divine Smite. Now here we actually can't, it's not good to go with this because we want to add in the Sorcerer and get level 5 spells so we can upcast. And with the Sorcerer spell list, we got Booming Blade, which is massive. This is going to add a punch of extra damage to our attack, and you're going to see it becomes very powerful. Also recommend taking Bone Chill, because that's really nice for stopping targets from receiving healing. And Shock and Grasp. Alright, 2. For the next spells, Magic Missile and Shield are 2 really great choices there. And we got the Shadow Magic for the Strength of the Grave, which will give us ability to stand back up if we get downed. And the big thing that we want is the Eyes of the Dark from the Shadow Magic Sorcerer. We also get the Hound of Ill Omen, which is amazing. But we're going to continue on here. We're going to take Thunderwave, and we'll take the Distance spell and Twin spell there. You can Twin Haste. However, our concentration, again, is best used on Darkness, and in particular, the Eyes of the Darkness. With this Darkness, basically what happens is we get the ability to see in it as well, similar to what a Warlock can do, which is crazy because then we can attack. No one can really attack us properly. It's very strong. And for this level, we're going to take Shadow Blade, because this is the whole purpose of this build. It's the most powerful spell that we get here. It does a 2d8 of damage, but if we use a level 5 spell slot, which is the max spell slot that we'll get, it does 4d8 of psychic damage, which is also doubled with the Resonant Stone. And that's where it becomes crazy. For our next meta magic, we're going to take Quickened spell there. And for level 4, for the feat, again, you can go with a Dexterity improvement or a Charisma improvement for better spell casting. For the cantrip, Friends is nice, but go with the elemental damage types, because we want to cover a variety of elemental damage types, because the Hound of Ill Omen can give us our sorcery points back. So that's also quite nice. I also like Scorching Ray. That's another good option that you got there, so we can go with something like that. Now we're spellcasting and melee attacking, and we actually have a lot of versatility when it comes to that. So our next level, we'll go with the Lightning Bolt or Fireball spell. Haste is also nice, but again, Darkness is our priority as far as cantrips go. as far as spells go. And we're going to take the Hound of Ill Omen, summon forth a creature of darkness. It'll do an attack which will give us our sorcery points back, which is extremely useful. And our next level, we'll take ourselves the Fireball spell. I like Counterspell too, but it's a little bit tight between the amount of spells that we get. And then for our final level, we can get something nice like Ice Storm or even Wall of Fire, but that's a concentration. So I think that Ice Storm is the best because this creates a difficult terrain for enemies to slip on. And you can also replace some of your spells if you want something different. If you want 2 level 4 spells, since we got up to level 5 spell slots, you could even take like one of these other ones you want, but I think that Ice Storm is the best here. And now that we're getting over to leveling, I'll show off the gear options and also combat. So with this setup here, I'm using the Dollar Amaris weapon, which gives you an additional 7 critical hit, but we're going to replace that with Shadow Blades. I also have a video that I posted before this video on how to make a permanent Shadow Blade. Like you see Shadowheart dual wielding them there. So that's really nice. I went with the Birthright hat. This will give us a 22 charisma. Now, what's crazy about this is we can get our spell save DC up to 28 if we use the Glove of Battle Mage's Power. When you hit a target with a spell or cantrip that uses a weapon, you gain Arcane Acuity. This previously didn't work, so before I get comments saying that this item doesn't work, it got fixed in patch 8. And the crazy part about it is Shadow Blade counts as a melee spell, so this will stack up your Arcane Acuity. At the same time, it'll also apply whenever you do Divine Smite. So you can actually stack them really quickly with this. Now the thing is, Arcane Acuity gives you a +1 to your spell save DC and spell attack rolls to a maximum of +10. This means that once you get a +10, our spells like Fireball will be pretty hard to avoid because it's going to give us a +10 to the number that the enemy has to roll to avoid it. That's why the Gloves of Battle Mage's Power is so effective. I also have the Evasive Shoes on here, but if you want to go crazy, you can add in the Boots of Stormy Clamor, as this is going to give you gives 2 turns of reverberation, which is huge because we can stack up reverberation as well. I went with the Armor of Persistence here. However, you could go with another choice like the Armor of Dexterity, the Armor of Agility there, because we have a decent enough dexterity to make that work. You can see this can give us +2 to saving throws. This will reduce all incoming damage by 2 and give us resistance and Blade Ward. The best armor obviously in the game is Hellduster Armor. That'll put our armor class up to 25, but going with the Armor of Persistence is really nice depending on what we want to roll with. Also, you could go with the Luminous Armor. This will create a Radiant Shockwave, which gives Radiating Orbs. So if you want to fully go crazy with the statuses, this is the way to go. But I'm going to stick with this here because this is going to be good. Again, early game, take the best available armor that you got. Shade Slayer Cloak. This will reduce our critical hit chance, or increase our critical hit chance by 5%, which is doubled because we're going to have advantage on our dice rolls from the Shadow Blade. So this becomes very nice. You could go with really the Deathstalker Mantle if you're the Dark Urge, or the Cloak Protection for a better armor class. We get our armor class up to 26 or even 27 if we use the ring. The Birthright hat can also be replaced if you want to use the Helmet of Arcane Acuity, because when you do weapon attacks, you gain Arcane Acuity for 2 turns. So you can continually stack Arcane Acuity using this. With this hat, you're just going to have the +2 to Charisma, so it's entirely your call between the 2 of these. This was just going to stack up your Arcane Acuity a lot quicker. You pretty much have +10 to Arcane Acuity if you have both of these items on, so you may want to give this to somebody else because it's really, really powerful. You could also go with the Mask of Soul Perception, increase your hit chance too. So that's another option that we got. Now for rings, the Shadow Cloaked ring here gives you the Shadow Thief. The wearer's weapon and unarmed attacks deal additional 1d4 damage against lightly or heavily obscure creatures and creatures made of shadow. We're going to have darkness, so that's going to increase our damage. And the Killer Sweetheart, this gives us another critical hit, which we can use to one-shot enemies with. And for the bow, I went with the Hellrider Longbow for the +3 to initiative, and Viconia's Walking Fortress as a shield, which will give us a nice saving throw against shields. So what this is all about. Now, there's also another way that we can kind of cheese this. So if you got the like Staff of Spell Power, you can actually use the Staff of Spell Power and use the Arcane Battery here, and then use that to upcast our Shadow Blade. So you can see there it goes up to just 32 damage. So applying this will give us the Shadow Blade. So we basically got it for free without having to spend our spells. Also, you can use free cast if you got it there, but you can see does upwards of 44 damage, which is crazy amounts of damage. This is also boosted with some of the other items that we have here. Now, what's also nice about this, you could also add in like the Helldust Gloves to add additional 1d6 of fire damage, or the Dark Justiciar Gauntlets give a 1d4 of necrotic damage. This is going to further increase the amount of damage that we're dealing, so that could be a nice choice as well. But I think with this, we do a crazy amount of spells with this. So Shadow Blade there, giving us ourselves the advantage. We could also take something like a Shadow Blade in the offhand if you wanted to use the permanent Shadow Blade, but I think that a shield to give us a decent armor class works best. So with this, I'll show you how to make the most out of it. And having the Resonant Stone is also something that we definitely want to have because it'll double the psychic damage. Now, we don't have many sorcery points, but we're going to use them to summon in our Hound of Ill Omen. This just gives us someone else that can break concentrations for us. And it can also hide out in darkness, which we're going to set up next. So darkness is definitely something you want to have enabled because darkness will give us a lot of defensive options, and it has to be the eyes of the darkness as well. So apply that if you know you're getting yourself into a fight. You can go ahead with applying darkness like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves into a combat encounter. So with darkness, basically what it's going to do is going to set up the advantage on our attack rolls, because that's the Shadow Blade there, advantage on attack rolls against lightly or heavy obscured creatures, so then we can hit for massive amounts of damage. Now our biggest hitter here is Divine Smite. We can add in 5d8 of radiant damage on top of the 4d8 plus 8 psychic plus 1d4 psychic, which becomes very high damage. But I'll show you here, you don't even need to use that because our main hand damage is going to do a potential of 88 damage at max without even encountering critical hits. So yeah, this is very hard hitting. I'm just going to show you what I mean by that, because we can just do a single attack here and it does 50 plus 6 damage there. So that's a lot. So then we can go ahead with triggering our extra attack. And as I mentioned, we're going to have advantage on our attack, so it's a 99% hit chance on pretty much anyone. That becomes crazy really quickly. And with critical hits, 64 damage, not bad. So yeah, then you can also use your Divine Smite there to do even further damage, 56 and 11. Yeah, this slaps. It's very offensive. We already rolled a critical hit there. 92 damage on that, double crit. Crazy. So yeah, as I said, it hits really hard. And then on top of that, we also, if you had one more sorcery point, like if our dog went and bit someone with and applied an omen, we regained our sorcery point, then you have a quicken spell. Unfortunately right now we just have our bonus action abilities, but we got like a Misty Step or even like Inquisitor's Might, which we can also apply. Vow of Enmity is also kind of nice because this will just give us straight up advantage on attack rolls against anyone at any time, although we're always going to have advantage basically with this. So I'll go with the Inquisitor's Might there. With our dog, we always want to do that ominous bite there because that can give us a chance, if it hits, to be able to apply an omen, which then we can regain our sorcery points from. Also, the thing with darkness is they can't attack into it, so what they'll do is they'll throw throwing attacks into it or throw at your team. The thing with throwing attacks is most times they're not going to be very good at doing throwing attacks, so darkness kind of cheeses the AI a little bit. It's a mechanic in the game. It's not breaking it by any means, but you become very strong with it. And we got them all grouped up here, so we also got Booming Blade, which you can see does upwards of 65 damage for a cantrip. Insane. So we'll hit there. 58, 11, 2, 6, 5. A lot of damage. But Divine Smite, as I mentioned, is going to be our biggest hitter. 60, 13, 5 damage. Crazy. Also, if we didn't have a concentration, we could use a Wrathful Smite for additional psychic damage, but this works well enough. You can burn through your spell slots pretty quickly with this because it just hits so hard. But the Sorcerer just gives us that ability to be able to do all of this. So it's really, really nice for what it's worth. And you can just continue to go around. Each action can give you a Booming Blade. So yeah, crazy amounts. 58, 6. Yeah, it hits very hard. That's literally, I've one-shot every single person so far. And that's what I mean by one-shot. You can stack this up even further, but it goes hard. You also get the, if you have the Mind Blast Illithid ability, that 48 of psychic damage is in a cone. So it's like Cone of Cold of your Shadow Blade. It's crazy. We'll try the Good Doggy Bite again here and hope that it hits. Omen of Acid, perfect. That's exactly what I want to show off. Of course, acid damage is the one elemental damage type that I do not have, but that's what arrows are for, so you can go ahead with attacking there. And then we got that, which didn't actually get rid of the Omen, unfortunately. So yeah, having Chromatic Orb can also be another nice spell, because then you can use that for being able to stack the damage. But what we're going to do now is we're just going to go ahead with our Booming Blade per action. So if you have haste, that's 2 Booming Blades, 2 Smites, and you only use 2 spells. So pretty crazy what you can pull off with that. I want more guards to fight, so I'm just going to go attack civilians there, unfortunately, just to be able to spawn in more guards. Now, another thing, if you got a scroll of Chromatic Orb, that can help out, since you can also use this to be able to use your attack. So we can go ahead with our Chromatic Orb to be able to regain our sorcery point. So even just having those can be nice. Great. We'll try that again. There we go, and that took them out. We got ourselves the sorcery point back though, so that'll give us our quicken spell. The only unfortunate thing is you only get those 7 sorcery points, and even without darkness, this is still a very optimal build, because You can just go around hitting that 58 and 10 damage there. Yeah, it goes hard. So that one-shot them. You can just continually one-shot people. And booming blades per action. So haste will give you 2 booming blades. Boom, 60 damage. That's crazy. So yeah, that's a one-shot build in Baldur's Gate 3. I one-shot everyone. It's crazy. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you found this useful. And I'll see you all in the next video. I guess I should note a little asterisk at the end. This doesn't work on constructs like Steel Watchers. However, they're vulnerable to lightning damage, so a chain lightning will take them down really quickly. So yeah, this little asterisk there. Have a great day.